Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're having a fantastic night. It's the beginning of the year and we have to have standards with ourselves and with the society around us and what we tolerate about the food that we introduce in our bodies. A brief example, right now I'm vacationing in Mexico, my country, and I rented an Airbnb, and this Airbnb was substandard. Based on what I was paying for, the accommodations were substandard. They didn't reach the minimum levels of comfort and, the basic stuff. It was like a noisy neighborhood. There was no hot water. They were charging like if I was staying in a 4-star hotel, when in reality, like everything that they had in their facilities sucked, not hot water, noisy neighborhood. The smell was terrible. I found it not so clean, and I already paid my stay for 4 days. And when you are not confident about your requirements, when you haven't put a threshold, right, or a limit, a barrier, a boundary, when you are not in that situation, you probably would stay. In my situation, I would probably stay and not say anything and not complain and just accept it as it is, like whatever, one more day is nothing's gonna happen. But when you realize that you need to have standards and that you will not accept anything less that you deserve, you definitely have to raise your hand, speak up and say that you don't confirm, like you are not okay with the current situation. And that's just like a silly example with the Airbnb. I had to leave. I had to, I messaged the host and I said, listen, you promised something in your Airbnb announcement and this is what I'm finding. It's substandard, right? And they were like, I feel like the way you ask for things, this is what you receive. The level of confidence that you display is the way people treat you. And this is just an example because I behave in a confident way and I presented myself like, you know what, you are not meeting my standards. Therefore, I demand a refund or cancel my reservation because I'm gonna move to a new Airbnb. By the way, this is a new one and it really fills my standards. So again, this is a silly example just to tell you that we need to diminish our tolerance when it comes to diet and when it comes to foods and when it comes to accepting whatever is presenting to us in our plates, in our foods. We need to have standards. Because if you don't have standards for your body, that means that you don't love yourself. And if you don't love yourself and if you don't respect yourself, nobody else is gonna do it. So self-respect and self-love, as the name implies, self starts with yourself. And if you don't demand that from yourself, nobody's gonna do it for you. You're gonna keep accepting whatever society, your work environment, your family members, your coworkers give to you. And you need to have some standards because at the end of the day, it's going to have repercussions in your health. When we don't have self-love, everything starts with self-love. And I know it's kind of like a cliche. Everybody talks about self-love. It's like, okay, what do you mean about self-love? Well, self-love starts with what you put in your body and what you accept as nutrition. What are your standards? Are you accepting something just for the sake of comfort? Are you accepting something just because this is the way things are? This is the way society is making you eat. This is the way everything is set up for you, so you don't have to think about and figure out what you have to eat, how to navigate, so you can meet your standards. Your level of your level of self-love and self-respect. It really has to match what you expect from society in terms of how you're gonna feed yourself. So if you just tolerate whatever is presented to you, that means that you don't have self-respect and self-love. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but this analogy came to mind because in the past, as I said, I will just tolerate, oh, this is a crappy Airbnb. And anyways, I already paid for it. It's a burden to have to look for another one. It's a burden to have to request a cancellation. It's a burden to have to, spend more time on my phone looking for another location. It's a burden to, have to wait for my bank to issue me a refund and then schedule another one, find another one close by. Yeah, it was a burden, but at the end, I don't regret it because I am in a much better location and it's almost exactly the same price and it meets my standards. Before, I don't know, maybe a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I wouldn't be so confident to have done that. But now, like, come on, I demand the best for my food. How come I will not demand the best treatment, the best location, because I'm paying for that? And you are paying with your life for what you accept out of life. So if you respect yourself, starting with your food, right? If you love yourself, starting with your food choices, everything is gonna replicate in all areas of your life, because the moment you start taking care of yourself and accepting only the best when it comes to food, you will develop this awareness to say, hey, I am respecting and loving myself by my food choices. Therefore, I also want respect and love from all other areas of my life, meaning relationships, treatment, and you have to demand that for yourself. I always say that Rawveganism is the tip of the iceberg when it comes to personal health, because when you are numbed by the food that society presents to you, the substandard food that society presents to you, you are also confirming to all the substandard treatment that society presents to you, whether it's your boss, your coworkers, your family members, your relatives, your friends, the situations that you live in, the conditions that you live in, and because you're numbed, you don't notice that it's substandard. But once you start incorporating raw foods and quality food, like human-specific diet, you realize, like, you know what, I'm not gonna tolerate any more substandard treatment from anybody else, because guess what? I love myself and I only accept quality food, quality diet, quality treatment. And as I said, everything replicates everywhere else in your life. So it's just a starting point. You have to set boundaries. You have to put your standards high. You have to develop a threshold for what you tolerate. And when it's not reaching what you deserve, you just reject it. If your level of self-love and self-respect has evolved and has reached a point where you no longer tolerate substandard food, great. That's great, because that way you're gonna be more selective and you're gonna move heaven and earth just to get the food that you deserve. Your body deserves that. So many of us don't feel deserving of the very best, and that's where we allow abuse from everyone and everything. So I invite you to consider that. Just like a Sicily example, I'm not gonna confirm with a crappy Airbnb, and I moved heaven and earth so I can have a decent place because I'm paying for it, right? And I became a confident woman, demanding what I was paying for with no hesitation. Like, hey, and I, put a complaint with the Airbnb team and all that. And I was kind of direct, not rude, but direct over the phone and said, hey, this Airbnb is crappy. They're promising this. They're not giving it to me. And then I also spoke with the Airbnb owner and I said, hey, I want to have a peaceful party here. I don't like confrontations. If you don't want me to leave you a bad review, cancel my reservation and refund me the days that I'm not gonna stay here because I'm gonna move. And guess what? The host was like, oh, I'm sorry, because I was direct and confident. And he was like, I'm sorry, we can find a solution together. I have another Airbnb, which is like, it was like in the next neighborhood, which I was not interested in. And he was kind of like apologizing, and at the same time, he didn't want to lose a business, right? Like an extra couple of days. And it was not the neighborhood that I wanted. The place didn't look like great at all. And just having that experience with that host, I was like, no way. I mean, if you cannot even take care of this place, how can I trust? How can I trust that you're gonna give me another Airbnb that meets my standards? I cannot trust that. So it's the same with food. When you go back to eating the crappy food that makes us feel terrible, and doesn't nourishes us and doesn't give the energy and vitality to our bodies, how can you trust going back to the same food? And it's tempting, it's tempting because we think that we're not going to suffer the consequences by going back to the same decisions over again. So the feedback that you receive when you go back to the crappy food that society presents to us, the moment you go back and you experience the consequences of those choices, you learn, that's a lesson, and that's a feedback that you need to use to level up and remember the experiences that you have when you allow lower standards with your food. So if I didn't know better, probably I would have said, when I didn't have standards, I would have said to this host, okay, I'm going to accept your new offer. Let's see what you have to offer. If I was not confident, if I didn't have lessons learned from this experience, right? Same with food. When society presents to you substandard food and family members, friends are inviting you saying, you know what, nothing's going to happen. Just take another bite. Let's get together and let's eat together and let's share this meal and all that. If you're not confident enough, if you know that you no longer have to eat that because you know the consequences, and if you haven't developed the feedback and you haven't learned the lessons, you will probably fall for it. But when you have standards and when you have experienced the lessons and you have acquired this knowledge and level of expertise, you will say, no way, I'm sorry. Thank you for the invitation, but I have standards. And you don't have to bring those terms. Deep inside, you know that you have self-respect and self-love. And regardless of who that is offering to you substandard food, you're going to probably find a way to be polite and reject that. And, probably come with a solution and say, hey, I have certain allergies. Just find a way. You don't have to be rude, right? And people have to meet you at your standards. You don't have to go down because otherwise you're not helping them and you're not helping you. So I hope this analogy is a good analogy so you develop a thick skin when it comes to rejecting the substandard food that society has to offer to you, and to develop this awareness and increase your level of self-love and self-respect when it comes to food. So, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video if you find it useful with your family and friends. Until the next one.